Mcginnis. I'm an organic vegetable farmer. My farm is located in Mandan, North Dakota, and I'm from Bismarck, North Dakota.
My name is Brian Mcginnis. I'm an organic vegetable farmer south of Mandan, North Dakota.
Cool. So you all live very close to the Standing Rock Sioux, I guess the protest of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Could you give us a little bit of background about your involvement in that and your stance on the protest and everything that happened over the last year or so?
I personally have been really upset watching what happened. I think that the oil pipeline being put through is an act of environmental racism against the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. It seems very obvious that the appropriate legal system for the oil pipeline going through was completely bypassed. It seems that our local law enforcement, the Morton County Sheriff, was used to defend the oil pipeline being put through illegally and used against the citizens of North Dakota. And it's been really upsetting to watch that take place. And then it's also been really complicated and difficult watching an influx of thousands and thousands of people that aren't invested in this community in a long-term sense come and make such a huge impact on it and then just leave. And so now it's kind of like the dust is settling and it's time to talk about that as a community for everybody that still is here.
Brian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, my interest in what was going on at the protest camp was definitely based mostly in sort of the concerns about environmental racism, and really less so about the actual environmental issues. So I think the environmental issues are really important and really complex, and those are issues that we need to work out, as a society, basically. And so, one of the things that I saw happen, everybody saw happen, was that, there was an original sort of protest that had to do, that sort of revolved around, sovereignty issues and essentially environmental racism issues that then became a much larger environmental protest, about oil development in general. I think both things are important, and I think it's important that we are, that we address oil development and how it's happening or how it should or shouldn't happen. But to me, the thing that was really striking about this was that it seemed very blatant that the sort of the rights and concerns of the Standing Rock tribal members were being ignored and I guess, what's the word? Offended, I guess. What happened was so blatant that they put this pipeline, feet from the northern boundary of the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation is offensive, and that's what really drew me to the side of sort of the protest. But then to watch it unfold, where it kind of became more of a larger thing that was about oil development became more complex, and I think that confused a lot of people and created a lot of issues.
Sure.
I don't know.
Because there was a certain point when the message, I think, got shifted, right? From the sovereignty, the route of the pipeline, to essentially fossil fuels, yes or no.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly. It became like a Keystone XL pipeline protest, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it's just that to me the core issue that began it and was important to address kind of got a little bit lost, which was this environmental racism. We're taking our risk, we're sending our risk management or our high risk issue to a group of people that have perceived less power and control over it, and that obviously that's wrong.
Yeah. So as like I asked earlier, living in the area, what has it been like living near I guess the protest camps, like you explained earlier, like how it really wasn't that big of a deal to have all these new people coming in, but if you want to further elaborate a little bit about that.
Yeah, our experience with the protest being close by, it's about 40 miles away, really. I think maybe as a crow flies 20. But was that there was more traffic a little bit, but mostly it didn't affect our day-to-day existence at all because people were concentrated on the protest camp in a small area, and so it changed the conversation perhaps in our neighborhood and our community about what people were talking about. But our experience, or my experience, was that it didn't really have an actual tangible impact, like physical impact, on my day-to-day existence.
And the other question I have on that, just to piggyback off that for either of you, whoever wants to answer it, is living in the area, like dealing with neighbors, having to discuss this with neighbors. Was there kind of like a strange kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but like just like a undertone that you would have to deal with? I know personally, I'd come here and my family, like my wife's family, would be like, they're terrorists or whatever, like things like that. I don't know. I mean, that's.
Well, I think it was such, and I don't know, like. Well, I'm gonna back up.
Yeah.
But it's like people turned this into such a black and white issue, and it's just like, for instance, I took a cab ride home. And the cab driver literally started talking about how he would put a plow on the front of his truck if it was legal because of that law they were trying to pass, and plow through protesters and murder them. And I was like, so I think that murdering people is a little ridiculous, and it's like, I guess my point is that it just turned into such this black and white issue where there's no compassionate or intelligent dialoguing taking place, and I think it's just like communication shut down.
Sure.
So it was like if you were against the protest, you just like ranted and raved with everybody else who was against it, and then if you supported it, you just ranted and raved with everybody who supported it, and it doesn't really seem like any intelligent dialoguing between those two extremely polarized ways of viewing it really took place, and I don't think there was ever like a middle ground to discuss it.
So we kind of talked about this a second ago, and where I'm going is you said something along the lines of there's all these people that came in and then they left, and now the people who are here in Bismarck, Mandan, or the whole region now kind of have to pick up all the pieces from all the issues that have happened. Could you guys elaborate on a little bit like what you're doing, what organizations you're working with to, like, I guess, dispel some of these myths and kind of pick up the pieces, so to speak, so that there isn't all this bad, negative stuff towards the people that were involved in that?
Well, I'm currently serving on a board for a DRC affiliate where we are coming together with Morton County, Burleigh County, and Sioux County to start dialoguing about this issue and talk about what is it that we can do to bring our community back together and heal wounds that were uncovered during this whole thing. And I personally, just in talking about it to people, I do really try to avoid any sort of extremist polarization during the conversation, and I just try to listen a lot and then like gently point out like, well, these are our neighbors, we all care about the river. And so right now I guess my biggest conscious act is trying to dialogue in a positive, constructive way.
Sure. Do you have anything to add, Brian?
I don't know. I mean, what I think is that what this is, there's a lot of talk about how it did all this damage to like the relationship between sort of the Bismarck Mandan community, or this, and the Standing Rock community. But I mean, my perception, and this is my personal opinion, is that really this brought to light a lot of issues that already existed, and most of those issues were things that the members of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe were already aware of and cognizant of on a regular basis, and the members of sort of the Bismarck-Mandan greater community wasn't aware of. So like everybody in the Bismarck-Mandan community was carrying on as if the relationship between this community and our neighboring community, the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, everything was fine. There were these great relationship going on, but in fact, that wasn't what was going on. If you were a member of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, you are still dealing with quite a few issues, social issues, regarding the existence of the reservation, etc. So it brought a lot of these issues of racism that were maybe under the, that were sort of undercover or covert, racism, and it brought a lot of stuff up to the surface. And I think that in that way, it's an opportunity for people to. It's not like, oh, it did all this damage to the relationship. It just kind of uncovered the wound that was already there, and so maybe now there's potential to, actually do something positive as opposed to just ignore it.
Sure. Do you have anything you want to ask, Liz?
No, I think it's going great.
Okay. Otherwise, I don't know if there's much else we can do. I mean, we have about 11 minutes here. I can probably figure out enough quotes from that. And then you guys can add quotes too.
Do you guys have stuff you want to add?
Yeah, I mean,
Is there something that you've said